Welcome back to the show, everybody. I'm Damon Hatfield. Next up, we're going to take a look at a PlayStation 4 exclusive called Everybody's Gone to the Rapture. Dan here is actually going to play the game for us. Welcome to the show.
Thank you very much for having me.
Now, we're going to just start into a new game, right?
Yep,
Okay.
we'll go and just get cracking into
So
a
let's
new
get that
game.
started, and then I can let you know that this is the type of game where just at a glance, I can tell I'm interested in it. But I actually don't know that much about it, so...
Yeah, it's quite a hard game to talk about because it's all story-based and because it's effectively a science fiction mystery game. So
On
it gets
board.
very hard to talk about because everything you say is taken away from what you're going to experience when you play
Sure.
the game. So it's been a real balancing act trying to...
So is there anything that we need to know before we actually jump into it?
Before we jump into it, I guess we know the game is set in 1984. It's set in a little rural community in England, and you have no idea who you are, what's going on. Really, we just put you straight into the world, and from there, it's just up to you to kind of assemble the jigsaw pieces and try and solve the mystery.
Okay, so we're all just going to sort of experience this together and sort of learn what Everybody's Gone to the Rapture is about as we play the game here. And this is coming out August 11th?
August 11th, that's right, yeah.
PlayStation 4 exclusive.
Okay.
Here we go.
This is Dr. Catherine Collins.
We've left the subtitles on because
I don't know if
hard to hear the
anyone
game
will ever hear this.
here in the studio.
It's all over.
Now, set in 1984,
I'm the only one left.
are there going to be any songs that were popular during 1984? that
No,
we'll
it's
encounter?
actually got an amazing soundtrack though. Jessica Curry, who wrote the music for Amnesia and Machine for Pigs,
Okay.
and Dear Esther is on board, and has really outdone herself on this one. It's a really stunning soundtrack.
How long have you been working on this?
About 2.5 years, I think, from start to finish. So it's been intense, but
Yeah.
it's been really, really rewarding. It's amazing to see it actually finally getting to the point where it's gonna come out. So just setting the scene, and then we'll be in.
So right off the bat, this is a gorgeous scene.
Yeah, and we're just in now. This is it. And from this point, what we're really interested in is that we've got minimal hand-holding. It's a game about discovery and exploration, and it's not something where we're just dropping story in front of the player as you go along. It's really down to you to find your own story, discover what happened, and that's really interesting, making an open-world, non-linear game where we really don't have that much control over where the player's going to go and how they're going to find the scenes, what order, what they're going to look at. So there's a lot of detail around the world that's really important. Everything you're seeing, everything you're hearing is a clue to the mystery some way or another. So I'm just going to find our first broadcast.
I'm going to continue to broadcast for as long as I'm able. If I'm right, we should be able to pick up the signal right across
So
the
we don't know
valley.
who this character Kate is. She's obviously kind of quite important to the story. And one of the things which we're looking for in the world is to continue trying to find her broadcast. So being on the lookout for these radios and trying to piece together her sort of role in what's happened.
Understand it yet.
And then the other characters that you're finding are really just the inhabitants of the valley. And it was really important to us to create a really kind of real living, breathing community. People talk a lot about living, breathing worlds, and we really wanted to have something where you really felt this was a genuine community. These are people we identify with. These are people that we know we've grown up with. So that was quite a big challenge in the game, was just saying we want to have people in this game that people feel like they know, they're related to, they've met. So it really helps you kind of emotionally tie into what's going on.
Now, I believe you described it as an open world game. Is that right?
Yeah, it's open world, yeah.
So we're going to head down the street here, but we could have gone the other way.
At this point, we're in the introductory bit, so we've got a little bit of road here that just kind of gets us used to the idea that we can turn on radios, we can find phones, we can turn those on, we can also trigger TVs, computers, tape recorders in the world and look for that. So we're going to move away from this slightly sinister radio announcement that's going on so we can get a bit further into the world. And then as we move up here, we'll head towards one of the major ways in which you can actually engage with story in the game, which is as you explore around, you'll gradually start discovering these strange, I guess, kind of breaches in kind of physics and time and space. And by tilting the DualShock 4 controller, kind of like tuning an analog radio, you're tuning into the signal that you're finding in these things. So we gently tilt it around until we find the trigger point and actually fire the scenes off. And then we start seeing these manifestations of the people that have lived in the valley start appearing and telling their story.
Staff on site for this rotation. I'm just saying, if the main gate's power fails, and there's no way in or out of the
And
observatory.
there's nothing here in terms of a HUD or UI. Is that something you turned off for the demo, or is this?
No, there's no HUD in it. We really wanted to remove everything we could that sort of took you away from the world. So it was a real thing of going, we want to project you as far into the world, as far into the story as we can. And so having those kind of elements to there just felt like actually you're pulling out and you're playing a game, and we really, you know, it's the holy grail really for these kind of games. We want you to forget you're playing a game and be so invested in it that actually it's an automatic reflex. You're not having to check any different things to actually work out what you're doing or where you have to go.
Okay, can we just talk about this?
And it's quite unusual for a game story, I guess, in a way, because we're really trying to create something where this is real people and real lives, and the kind of
I love you.
the conversations that we have every day, and there's no kind of like big post-apocalyptic heroics and all this sort of stuff. We're really interested in going. There's so many games which kind of deal with that and do it so well with post-apocalypse, and we've kind of started from a point of going, well, yeah, but what if it was us? You know, if we were actually in these kind of extreme circumstances, how would we react? How can we make something that's really relatable that people can go, I recognize a bit of myself in Steve, and or Kate feels really like the way which I'd do stuff.
Yeah, I would say most video games are about being loud and intense and over the top. So sometimes a little understatement can be refreshing.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of it's what I love about games, particularly at the moment, is they're such broad church in terms of you can get pretty much any type of game you want. So it really feels like there's a place for these more kind of reflective, slower paced, emotional games.
Is this another one of the little scenes that we
So
saw
no,
earlier?
this is a new phenomenon we haven't found yet, and as we move towards it, we get this name on the bottom of the screen. Now, how that relates to what we're following and why it seems to be leading us about and communicating with us is again part of the mystery. And these things are actually AI controlled, so they will take you around the world, show you places that are important to them. So it's kind of, we're trying to avoid having too much heavy signposting because we really wanted to keep that sense of discovery, sense of exploration, but there are these kind of hints in there when you come across the moats. They'll usually show you around to places that are important to them. And then as you're exploring, you're gradually finding these scenes and the characters start increasing in number as you start kind of getting more of a sense of the community that's there and how each individual person responded to whatever it is, this event that's happened that you're kind of gradually tracking around the valley.
Now, I'm sure this is one of those questions that developers hate being asked, but about how long will it take you to put everything together?
So, I mean, it's quite a big world, actually. So what we can see down here, we're heading towards Yorton Village, and we'll head straight into the middle of that so I can give you an idea of the scale of it. Yorton's one of 6 locations in the game, and each location's tied to one of the principal characters. You kind of find Jeremy's story in the village, and then it moves on to another area. And you can move freely backs and forwards between those areas. But if you focus in that area, you'll gradually kind of uncover it and discover the story that's there. Each area, anywhere between 45 minutes to an hour. So we're kind of, if you really, really go looking, you can probably get a good solid 6 to 7 hours worth of play out of it, which is, you know, kind of interesting. And we're really interested in people, obviously, being in the world as long as possible. And really, we talk a lot about the idea of inspiring people to find the story rather than forcing the story on them. And that's kind of our major goal as a developer, is to go, we have to make you care and we have to make you want to find out what happens to these people. So I have another one of these strange artifact tilts here that I can then use and fire off. And I'm just going to fire that. And then as we're going through this, we can see we've got another scene here with Kate and Steve and just sort of like reinforcing them. But then we've also got a lot of visual detail going on around at the same time. And because we didn't really want to do something that was mainly kind of audio diaries, we wanted to have something where we could do something that normally would be told with a cutscene, that you normally kind of stop and break out and take a lot of cinematic control if you really want to deliver an emotional punch in a scene. And we really wanted to do something where actually you retain control through all of those things. And that was the challenge, really, is then saying there has to be stuff for you to do within that you kind of don't feel like you're being artificially contained in a space and just waiting for the game to catch up with you. But actually you're always in control, you're always kind of an active part of the scene that's going on. And it's amazing how just having this kind of camera control and being able to get up really close to the characters can really change your emotional perspective on it if you decide to be watching them from a distance or getting really close. And there are a lot of environmental storytelling details going on in the backgrounds and the visuals, which are clues to the scene or the wider picture that's going on. So it's not something where you kind of feel like you're just running and then waiting and then running and waiting, which is something we really wanted to play with. As we finish the scene, we're getting led a bit deeper in.
Everything has gotten quite dark. Is that because something supernatural is happening, or is time
Well,
passing?
that's part of the mystery.
Okay.
It's kind of
Okay.
like, why do you go to these different time zones? How are things changing? Exactly how long have you been in this space? When did whatever the event was happen? And that's gradually all sort of pieced together. So it gets into that really awkward thing of going,
Gotcha.
well, we could tell you, but then
Yeah,
you wouldn't
sure.
have to play the game. This is so this is the center of Yorton we're going up to here. You get an idea of the sense fit. And quite a number of these buildings have interiors. I'll head into a couple in a minute just to kind of show you them. But you can get an idea of kind of how big the space is and how non-linear it is as well. We've got houses over beyond these houses, beyond the village hall, which is up here, which I'll head up to. There's more houses beyond that. There's houses tucked away behind these cottages here. And it's really down to you, kind of the order that you do it in. We have no control over that. So we know we've got key scenes that you know when you're being signaled towards a key scene because these tilts appear that you can engage with. But other than that, you can choose to skip that, go forwards. So we've got, I think one of the things that's really exciting, what for me makes it, is what I love about writing for games, is we don't have that control over the player. So we have to kind of write a story that means that the path you take and the choices you make in terms of your exploration are going to completely affect how you understand the story, how you relate to the characters. You might start off with a character that you find really problematic, or you can't stand, or you think their behaviour's awful, and you can play through all the game that thing, and you might have just missed one scene. Where actually in that scene you understand that there's a reason why they're behaving the way they are, and so a player who finds that scene or explores in that different way is going to have a totally different relationships to character and a totally different understanding of the story, and that's hugely exciting. That's
Sure.
so different, and it really kind of evolves the kind of walk-in sim genre, I think, in that way.
It must also be difficult for you to make sure that they're getting the important pieces that they need to piece it all together, right?
Yeah, I mean it is, but I think in a way it's kind of liberating, because beyond a point you just have to say, well, we can't control it. So if we trust the story, if we trust the characters are good, so we're not really, we've got a plot, the plot's very mysterious, but this is a game about people, it's a game about characters, and if the characters are engaging and interesting and you want to find out what happens to them, then that's what's going to carry you through. So yeah, it's in a way it's kind of quite pure game writing.
We're almost out of time here, but I have to ask, this being a PS4 exclusive, have you considered Project Morpheus?
Well,
Seems
I mean,
like
it's
it'd be a
really
good
interesting,
fit,
Morpheus.
right?
Yeah. I mean, as you can see, it's a very, very high fidelity world, very, very detailed. So there's a lot of challenges from that, but it's also really exciting. And I think there's a lot of developers that are looking at exploration story games as being something where they can really, really work well with that kind of technology. So we're really excited about the tech, and hopefully we'll get a chance to have a play with it at some point.
Well, that is a quick look at Everybody's Gone to the Rapture, coming to PS4 on August 11th.
Yes.
Looks very cool, very unique and interesting. Something a little bit different, which is really nice to see. So, Dan, thank you so much for coming by the show.
Thank you. Thanks for
Stay
having
tuned.
us.
We still have a couple more demos here from the first day of our live show, stage demos here at E3 2015. Stay tuned.